McCarron, your thoughts on the idea of Corbin Burnes being at the top of the Mets wish list?
Well, I mean, I would just move him right down below Juan Soto if I were running things.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I think that Soto ought to be the priority. This is a rare opportunity. We've been into the reasons why. Corbin Burnes, to me, very interesting. To me, that looks like a contract, though, that you'll ultimately suffer on the back end on. I don't know if David Stearns is that kind of GM where he's willing to say, like, okay, first 2-3 years are going to be great and we're going to be really good because of this guy, and then the back end will just hold on for dear life. I would do it because I think the Mets are a team that will be pointed toward the World Series next year. And if he can help get you the one, then it's basically what the Yankees did with CC Sabathia in 2009 when they signed him. They got the one World Series out of it. He was good other years and then not so good other years. But overall, it was a decent contract because of that one title.
Yeah, my thing with this is I know that David Stearns in places like Milwaukee where he really didn't have a ton of money to spend and didn't love falling, into a 6 or 7 year deal for a pitcher who, how many of those years is he going to be hurt? But it was big for the Mets this year with Sean Manaea and Luis Severino. Those were two guys that you took a chance on that turned into a pair of really good pitchers. But you didn't have that sure thing. You didn't have that Senga, that ace type. I think Corbin Burnes gives you at least some stability where as Anthony said, he's posting every single start. Every 5 days he's out there for you. And I know that David Stearns hasn't done that, but he may have not had the financial capabilities of doing that. It's a lot of free agents on the market. There's a lot of pitchers, which could bring the Burnes price down just a little bit so it is palatable and you're not throwing away money on a guy who might be a bad deal over 6 or 7 years.
All right, DiComo. David Stearns was in Milwaukee. Corbin Burnes was in Milwaukee. What do you make of that relationship? Good thing? Not such a good thing for the potential of Burnes becoming a Met.
I think it cuts both ways, and I think, frankly, both sides of this are being overblown. I've heard people who say, oh, well, those guys were together for 5-6 years in Milwaukee. That means that they have a great relationship. And I've also heard people say, well, there was this nasty arbitration hearing, which, by the way, David Stearns was not even running the show at that point. So I don't think that's that big of a deal either. I will say this. For as much as David Stearns is familiar with Corbin Burnes, he knows his warts as well as his good points, as well as his strengths. So I do think it cuts both ways. The one thing I'll say is that David Stearns, guys, is not the type of GM to grow attached to players, right? We saw that with the Josh Hader deal. I don't think he's the guy who's in the clubhouse every day and he's like having these warm and fuzzy relationships with players. That's a good thing in my eyes. But when it comes to a negotiation with someone like Corbin Burnes, who he has known in the past, I don't think it makes him like a heavy favorite to land Burnes just because he knew him before.